Hey, welcome to the Table Talk Podcast. This is Caleb. I'm here with Ron and David. We're in a different spot today because we are getting some air conditioning work done in the sanctuary, and it is pretty loud up there. And I don't think you guys want to hear in the background behind our talking. Maybe you'd rather hear that over us. I don't know. By the end of this, they may wish they'd heard the air conditioner instead.
That's right.
Well, guys, thanks for hanging out. What's going on? How's your week? How's your weekend? What's going on?
I had a good weekend. Had a actually really busy weekend.
Had a birthday.
Had a
did
birthday.
have a birthday,
37.
Nice.
So it was a busy one. So Harry Jackson, Sonia's husband, on Friday we had celebrated his
70th.
birthday, 70th birthday. So we were all three at that, and then Saturday we had a grandparent training,
Yep.
and then I had a birthday party, and then Sunday church, and then Sunday night we went to a fundraiser thing for some teenager play type thing on Sunday night. So I was tired. Sunday night I got home and I was wiped. So
Busy.
Yeah.
Miriam and I started watching the Beast games.
Oh, yeah.
And that's very interesting.
It is very interesting. I've got one episode left. So
we've got 3, so we'll see how that goes. But it was good.
It's wild. If you haven't watched it, it's an interesting study in like human psychology.
It really is.
Yeah.
Watch how people react and then how other people react and how they react. And
It's wild. Well, also this past weekend, you preached.
That's right.
And we talked about inspiring people.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to hear you, but then also to see Holly McDaniel kind of share her story.
Great job. So good.
Kind of what were some of the big things that were kind of going around, your head as you were heading into that sermon, and kind of the big themes from that for you?
Yeah. I mean, probably the biggest, I'm repeating things that I said there, but the biggest thing to me is I think so many of us grew up in a church where I don't know if they meant to, I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional, but it really made God seem very angry. The old sermon from the 1700s, sinners in the hands of an angry God, right? From Jonathan
Edwards,
Jonathan Edwards, it's not necessarily wrong, but it presents, I think, the wrong tone first. And Jesus, when he actually came in the flesh, seemed like he brought a much different tone than that, and said, "Hey, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father." So it's like, oh, okay, that must be more what God is like, because that's what Jesus was like. So, and that dichotomy between so many of us really are drawn to Jesus and scared of God.
Yeah.
But they're the same. Like, isn't that a problem if we're drawn to one and not the other? Maybe it's our view that's messed up.
Yeah. That's such a great point. And like I think what's hard, at least for me, a lot of times, is balancing the justice that we want.
Right.
We want that. We want justice and things like that, but also with the grace and the love.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, it just feels like that's such a balancing act. And then you see Jesus who balances it perfect. But I think we also see like, well, there is justice coming, and for us, sometimes that feels
right.
It can feel unfair because we don't want it for ourselves.
Right.
we may want it. We may want justice on other people, but not necessarily ourselves or things like that.
Yeah,
So,
David Wheeler said it in the grandparenting thing. Jesus was 100% truth and 100% grace.
Yeah.
We think, well, you had to be 50-50, right? The
Yeah.
math doesn't work out unless it's 50-50. And it's like, no, somehow he was able to be 100% of both. And we wrestle with that. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
It's always a wrestling match to try to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's wrestling in the scriptures too. Like I think that's why you have that pull where you're like, man, I'm just trying to figure out what is he going for here, and it's like, but then you see Jesus coming, you're like, oh, this is I see it. I see what he's working towards.
Yeah.
The revelation he's
We see him
towards.
perfectly live it out, and yet what's crazy is he's allowed to have 200% because he's God and man. We've only got 100%.
Right.
So it's
That's
like,
right.
unfortunately, some of us will fall one way or the other, and the goal is to try to walk that line as best we can the way Jesus did, knowing we're limited to do so, but it does feel like, for me, the Jesus-God dichotomy growing up, I always envisioned, like, when I died, I got sent to this courtroom before God, and God was ready to like smash me to oblivion, and then Jesus sneaks in the side door and says, wait.
That's right.
He's with me. We're good. And then God goes, okay,
Right.
take him.
Bummer, I almost had one.
Like that's how I always thought. That's why I always saw it. And, now growing up and coming to realize that Jesus is that, Hebrews calls him the perfect imprint, right, of God, the perfect reflection that he is God and God is he. And it is this beautiful picture. But it is scary. And I think when we live, what you said, so focused on the fear that we miss the beauty, there's just so much missing in our faith and in our story with Jesus.
Right. And it even keeps some people from either coming to God in the first place or coming back to God after they've slipped away, because they're like, well, I'm not good enough. I've got to get it right. And it's like, man, if you're doing that, you're never going to succeed at that.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of God, is he just loves us. So,
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this in staff stuff, but the bike balance for us, it's like balancing a bike of the grace and truth, and just like a bike, you don't realize it, but you're constantly constantly correcting, and so often you can overcorrect to one side, and that's when things just get bad. So Lila wrecked her bike a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and it was just she leaned a little too far, went over an edge, and boom. And it's like that's when things start getting hairy and start getting tough. Is when you lean so far over into one area that it's like, no, we gotta make sure that we're balancing this correctly.
Right.
Well, Jesus had the opportunity in the story you told from John 4. He had the opportunity to lean that bike too far one way or the other.
Right.
And yet he seemed to be able to just keep that bike perfectly straight up as he talked with the woman at the well. What about that story kind of spoke to you around this theme of inspiring people?
Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest thing that got me was her reaction when she leaves that moment with Jesus and runs off without her water pail that she came to fill up, and goes through the town telling people, "Come meet a man who's told me everything I've ever done. Could he be the Messiah? Like, this could be him."
Yeah.
And then people, do that.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's all good. Doorbell.
That is the doorbell upstairs.
Yeah.
So but anyway, they end up, all these people come out, right? And they're like, what she said, like, this, could this be true? And they come out there, and I love what they say to her is, hey, we came out here because of what you told us, but now that we've actually heard him, that's why we're actually staying. And it's like, that's cool. I would love it if people would say, hey, Ron, we leaned in to find out more about Jesus because of you, but actually we stayed because of Jesus. I go, that's awesome.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And the word inspiring, right, has been a part of West Town for a long time.
Our DNA,
and is there, how long has that been, the inspiring people to follow Jesus? Because it was before me and Kaleb got here.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
I lose track of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I mean, for the longest time, it was follow Jesus. Down on the gym floor, it says follow Jesus. And we are totally, that hasn't changed. But we took it to another step and said, you know what, we want to inspire people to follow Jesus. Because it's one thing if I just try to follow Jesus, right? I'm doing it like I could be a monk, right? Go out by myself and I'm just going to try to follow Jesus. I have no influence on the world at all. I'm not salt or light. But if I'm going to be salt and light, then it needs to be more than me following Jesus. I need to inspire other people to do it too. So somewhere in the way, it's probably 10 years ago or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's we've kind of kept that as a core value as we've kind of moved to this navigating Knoxville toward wholeness in Jesus, because we feel like that's one of the ways you do this is you inspire people. All of us, and you guys probably too, have stories of when you weren't inspired to follow Jesus, when somebody tried to scare you into following Jesus, or somebody tried to guilt trip you or intimidate you. And the fruit of that, I mean, you said on Sunday that those can be good motivators, but maybe they're not the best motivators.
Right.
And so it's like what you said, if we bend that bike too far the other way, that we're only living in that fear, guilt mode, there's just some fruit there that I don't think grows the way that Jesus desires for us to grow.
Yeah. Yeah, when I didn't tell this story on Sunday, but when I was at Johnson Bible College, Johnson University, And we'd gone to chapel, and the whole school goes to chapel at one time, right? And at that time, we were in the old alumni memorial chapel, which is condemned
The asbestos
now.
mold-filled alumni memorial
It's
chapel.
amazing I'm still alive.
Yeah.
But as we came out, there was this guy standing there with the sign and the big van painted, and it was all like, you need to repent. And we were all like, this is really weird. You're at a Bible college and you're trying to tell us all to repent. And so we just tried to engage with them in pleasant conversation. Just say, hey, if we're doing something that we shouldn't be doing, or if we're not doing what we should be doing, please tell us. Like, we want to know. We want to follow Jesus better.
Yeah.
And his stance was just, you're just going to hell. You got, and it's like, okay, that.
Right.
Why? Like, for some reason, he just had that ingrained in his head that that's all he could say, and he didn't offer any hope on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And to me, that was like, wow, that's so sad that he feels like he's following God to go on that mission and do it, but he didn't have any more to engage us with to say, well, here's why, because you're not feeding the hungry or whatever. Any of that would have been great to say to us,
Right.
but that's not where he went. He just kept harping that we were going to hell.
Yeah.
So,
And it's just the opposite of what we see Jesus doing. I mean, Jesus talks about judgment. He talks about hell. He talks about, after death. But I always think he does it in a way that is inspiring. I mean, he doesn't shy away from reality, but he also does not withhold grace and mercy as he's talking about very serious things. And I just think we miss the point. Sometimes we can go too far the other way, where we withhold truth for the sake of mercy and love and all that. I mean, those things matter. This matters too. Jesus just somehow is able to put those two together. And unfortunately, we're never going to live totally up to that. But that's what makes him, to me, so inspiring to follow.
Right.
Is how is he able to do this? Because I wrestle with myself, but he somehow is just able to tie those things together hand in hand and say, here it is, come with me. And I don't know, it's a beautiful thing how he's able to pull that off.
For sure. When I think of trying to inspire people, I think a lot of times, like, how do we do, because coming out of that, it's like, how do you do that? And I think sometimes for me, I would think of it as like, I've got to do these big things. Like, what's a way that I can inspire? Maybe if I could go house 50 people, and then and it's like,
start
how do I
ministry?
Or start this new thing that's huge or whatever. But I think a lot of times, and this has been in my life, the people that have inspired me have not necessarily been these huge figures that were doing these massive things. For me, it's been people who have been living faithfully or have inspired me in small ways. Is that something you guys have found at all in your life?
Yeah, I mean, Holly was a great example of that, right?
Yeah.
She's living it out as a mom, but then battling this cancer, and then through it all going, I'm going to give God the glory no matter what. To me, that's more inspiring than somebody starting a ministry that, has 1,000 people being ministered to or whatever. The fact we had a couple that came on Sunday after their daughter died the day before, right? And it came going, we're still going to give God praise and glory. And it's like, that's more inspiring to me.
Right.
So yeah, those little things are, which I say little, they're not little, but they're not starting a huge ministry, yet at the same time, so powerful.
Yeah. I mean, it's like faith as a mustard seed, right? It's just those tiny things. And even, I get so inspired by people who live just, you can tell their walk with Jesus is so close, and they're not boasting about it. They're not trying to make a big deal about it. It is the epitome of, hey, when you pray, go in your home, shut the door, pray, be with your Father. When you can just kind of feel that from people, that to me is like, that's what inspires me, just that closeness, that intimacy with Jesus. And starting huge things is great and awesome, but I want that, I want that intimacy with him. And so that's what inspires me when I come across somebody who has that and you can tell it's legitimate.
Yeah, I mean, I just think of people that I've seen married for years, and it's like, man, that inspires me. They love Jesus, and they're putting Christ
Faithful
first.
through all
Faithful, or maybe they've been through hard things in their marriage, and they've fought back from those things and come back together. I think of people who've gone through sicknesses or loss and things like that. My mom went through very similar stuff, and it's like you worry and you think, oh man, could this go dark, or could this be? Because that's something that you worry about. It's like, no, it's actually God used it to to build up our family and to make us stronger. Or it's those type of things that I go, man, I don't even want to know what it's like without God.
Right.
Like I don't even want to. I see those people and I see the hope that they have and the peace that they have, and how that's what inspires me to be like, this is worth chasing after.
Yeah.
And even if I have struggles or if I have questions or if I don't know what direction in my faith or whatever that I'm struggling with, it's like I see those things and go, it's worth going after. For me.
Yeah. When you kind of ended your sermon that way, talking about the need to live a better story, just kind of quickly, like, what are some ways we can do that? How do we live a better story that does inspire people toward Him?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, some of it is I think we all get caught in ruts, and some of those ruts involve a TV or a screen of some sort, right? And so we spend a lot of time in that way. It's like some of it is just live a better story by going out and being with people and interacting with them and if possible, serving them. It doesn't have to always involve serving them, but as you're around them and you're really listening to what's going on in their life, you'll find ways that people need served, right? They need something, and you can lean into that. And to me, that's a much better story than I binge watched, all the episodes of whatever, right? That doesn't do anything.
Beast games.
Yeah, Beast games. Right, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Even as cool as it is.
It is very cool. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's so true. And I love also what you said, the fact that just not shying away from our stories, I think. Like God can work through those. I'm sure the woman at the well, however she got into that situation she was in, her story was probably something she wanted to hide from, and yet Jesus is actually able to bring that to light in a way that shows her something new about who God is. And I think that's true for all of us, that He uses our stories as a way to reveal things to ourselves and other people. And so just living that, not shying away from it, is just, it's huge. And like what you said, those are the small things, those small kind of inspirational moments when I see people living out their story and God doing something cool with it.
Yeah, we went out for pizza on Sunday, and I saw a young guy, 18, 19 years old. He had his Bible there, and he was just not making a big deal, not making a show of or anything, just hanging out. And it was like, it's like that's cool to me that he's willing to be there and doing that by himself, and not trying to get attention or anything. And it's like at his age, I don't know if I was doing that.
Right.
And it's like I just walked by and said, "Hey, man, keep going, because it's like that's cool." And it's like that, whatever he was, college age, whatever he was, student, like that inspired me. Yeah. It was like, oh, there are people that are chasing, and it's like just you don't know when people are looking, or when you don't know when people are inspired. You probably don't know when you're when they're inspired by you. Probably more people are inspired by you when you're living out faithfully than you realize. And it can change lives. One prayer, one taking time to say, "How you doing?" and they say bad, and instead of moving on, you go, "Oh, can you? What do you mean?"
Right.
Yeah, like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And
so often we're 5 steps beyond them when we hear the bad, and we're like, "Do I turn around or not?"
Yes.
Like, you turn around. Like, right? That's
you just don't know when those little things can make a huge difference in people's lives, and it can inspire them to pray, or inspire them to look at something, or to go, "Man, why did that person pay attention to me?"
Yeah.
And I think God can use those things.
Yeah. It's very cool. Well, thanks for preaching it. Thanks for taking us through it. Sunday, we'll move into cultivating refuge, which should be fun.
Yeah, finishing off our 4 values.
Finishing off this series, and then we'll move into the following series, All In, which is talking about really kind of digging into that Shema, and kind of those areas, those categories of wholeness that Jesus kind of lays out. So it should be fun. Excited about it. I guess next week we'll get back together and recap Beast Games and the sermon, if that sounds good.
Right.
You guys have to watch it. You guys have 7 days to watch it.
That's awesome.
All right, well, guys, thanks. We'll get back together next week, and thanks for doing Table Talk.
Very good.